Welcome, everyone, to the Clocking Out podcast. It's a show about people who share their own personal journey that include making bold choices to clock out of situations, to follow their dreams of career fulfillment, and to live their best, most authentic lives. I am your host, Raymond Lee, and this podcast could not be possible without the support of Career Minds. Today, I'm delighted to welcome Ginny Palmieri to the show. Ginny is such a rock star, and at an early age, she was surrounded by an Italian family of overachievers, which propelled her into graduating top of her class at Temple University and Thomas Jefferson University. I just love Ginny's diverse background, as over her career, she had P&L responsibility, she managed complex change, and she has extensive experience in developing teams. She's often described as a person whose words and actions are always consistent, and she's not afraid to share with you the good, the bad, and the ugly in a way that can be heard and appreciated. So in this episode, Ginny and I, we have a lot of fun as we discover so many commonalities beyond what we already share in common, which includes selling Cutco knives. So without further ado, please enjoy Ginny Palmieri and her clocking out story. Ginny, welcome to the podcast. It's so great to see you.
Hi, Raymond. Great, Raymond. Thank you for having me. I am more than excited to be here. I always enjoy our conversations on and off stage.
So me too. I feel like you and I have been knowing each other for almost a decade now. Believe it or not, we've only met just a few months ago through a mutual friend, and I feel like we're kindred spirits. I really feel that way, and I will say that because you sent me a book, which thank you so much. It's called Unspoken, which we will talk about a little bit later. But I started reading it, and there are so many sort of mutual beliefs, mottos that we share. And one of the things that I want to say just from the beginning is, in one of your chapters, you reference authenticity equals opportunity. And one of the reasons I wrote that is that I feel like when you and I, we met, we were being our authentic selves. And just in the last couple of months, so much opportunity has been created. And so here we are today. And so I'm just delighted to get to know you a little bit more. And also for anyone who's listening to learn about your just such inspiring story. So just so happy to dig in.
Thank you. Or they might be scared and go, oh my God, what did, but all good, right? All good.
Yeah, exactly. So Jenny, I'd love to just have you start from the beginning. Tell us, where are you from? And also it'd be great to know what your parents did, and we'll go from there.
Okay. So I grew up in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. So I am a native for this area. As you know, I am Italian. I'm 100% Italian. My father was Italian. My mother was Italian. And we grew up in that large Italian family. So my grandmother on my dad's side, just to give you some numbers, had 65 grandchildren and great-grandchildren. That was just my father's side. So we always saw all of our family throughout the year. We saw everyone during the holidays. We made it around. It was amazing. So when I talk about the village in my book, it's because I know how important it is to have that kind of support system around you. And by extension, the friends that are in my life also become part of the family. When we go down to the shore, everyone's like, who's that? I'm like, it's my sister, and they're all part of our clan, we'll call it. And so that was a major part of my upbringing. The other thing that I was, in my upbringing is I'm the only girl between two boys in an Italian family. Why is that important? Well, my parents raised me to be independent, to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. I was going to be educated, and I love school. And if I could go back full time today and get like multiple degrees, I would. So from the beginning, that was how I was bred. And my father was a biochemist. He was at CHOP for 33 years. He was known internationally and nationally for the work he did with rare diseases and helping families find out how to cure their children. And my mother was a homemaker for the first part of my life, the first 10 or 12 years, and did some work from home. And she took care of us. And then after we turned around 16, she went and started, outside of the household. But we always had that support system around us. So I really I'm very fortunate. And that's also part of what has driven me, that I feel like I've been given so many gifts, and I've been lots of challenges, but many gifts, right? So I feel like I need to continue to give back and make sure that I am helping others in whatever that journey looks like.
So what was your most memorable moment growing up? You mentioned that you were the only daughter between two brothers. So you had an older brother and a younger brother. What was home life like with your two brothers?
Oh my goodness. So also keep in mind that we're all MBA'd and PhD'd out, right? Because everybody, it's all about, I'm highly competitive because of those two my brothers. And I didn't realize how much of an impact they had on my life today. I mean, as I grow up, my voice, everyone's like, why are you so comfortable in sharing your thoughts? I'm like, you have to understand, we're sitting around the table. We always had dinner together. And it was all about who was going to share their story and who was going to be heard. And so I learned very young, at a young age, that in order for me to have my voice heard, I had to speak up. I had to articulate. I had to make sure I was getting my message across. And my brothers, it's funny because they're the typical brothers. Oh my goodness. When we're out with everybody, they're like protecting their sister. All right. But when we're behind closed doors, you're going to listen to me. Mom and dad are gone. I'm like, I don't think so. I don't really think that's going to happen. And my older brother in particular would get annoyed with me because I was always ahead of him when my parents went away. He's like, well, you're going to do this. I'm like, no, I'm not. Here's what I'm going to do. And he's like, really? And even at this age, we laugh about it. He's like, you were the princess. I'm like, yes, I was. And now I'm the queen. So let's be clear. And he's like, so anyway, they had a huge impact on my life. I loved it.
So it sounds like, you grew up in a family and a household of overachievers. It sounds like your brothers went off to get graduate degrees and PhDs. And at what age did you really start to think about what you wanted to be when you grew up? And what was that?
Well, what's funny is I've always wanted to be an attorney. So in elementary school, I'm like, I'm going to be an attorney. I'm going to be an attorney. So everything that I knew, I was going to be attorney. And went to college. I was pre-law. And then one of the major, what I would call crises at the time, but I believe what door closes, another one opens. Okay. Now I'm not a good test taker because they give you 5 answers and I can tell you why they're all wrong. And I can this is the answer. And so when I take tests, I'm not always the best test taker. So why is that important? Well, you take the LSATs and they're the examinations to get into law school. My grades were there and I only wanted to go to Temple Law. That's it. And I didn't get in. And I remember because we had the phones at the time, right? I called my dad at work and my mom was there and I am literally crying. I didn't get into Temple. They're like, there's other law schools. I'm like, you don't understand. I only want to go to Temple. And when I get my mind to something, it's sometimes hard to get me moved away from that, especially when I was younger, right? In that age, I was 21 or so.
Yeah.
So my dad's like, you can go to Hofstra. You can get into Hofstra. You'll be great. I'm like, that's not the point. So I didn't get into law school and I had a plan. So I was going to go to law school. I wasn't getting married till 30, maybe 32. Wasn't having children until after that because I had a plan. Well, my plan was blown up. So instead of going to law school, I went and had my first job. It was in marketing at the American Red Cross. And I did business development and taught CPR, first aid, HIV and AIDS. And I learned a ton. I learned a lot. And I met my first husband at the time. And I was engaged within 7 months. I fell in love. I come home the next day after the date. I say to my mom, I'm getting married. And she's like, excuse me, this is not on the plan. I thought you said 30 or something. I'm like, well, here we go. So, again, it all worked out. I have two beautiful children from my first marriage. I absolutely, we talk about success. My two amazing young men are just incredible people. And now I've been married a second time with an amazing partner. And here we are. Here we are.
I wanted to ask, when you graduated from college and you were looking for that first job, was there a struggle in finding a job without having any work experience? And how did you overcome that?
Absolutely. Many struggles. So before, as you're looking for jobs, I'm always hustling. So do you remember the Cutco knives? So as I was trying to find,
Stop it.
I
I sold Cutco knives. Yes.
You can make a lot of money with Cutco.
The Homemaker Plus 8 was like a cash cow.
Yes, exactly. So and even today I still have my sets and they're like, oh my God, these are beautiful. I'm like, yes, they are. So, and anytime a young adult comes to me to sell them, I'm like, give them to me. Come here. I have to help you. We have to help you. So I did that as I was looking for my job. It took me a few months, of course. And then, of course, I used my network. So at the American Red Cross, I won't share the full name, that my aunt was one of the leaders, the executives over there. And she brought me in and they interviewed me and they're like, I think she'd be good at this job. So from early on, I've always used my network. Now, let me take you back a little bit. So when I was growing up, I played sports my entire life. I played softball, field hockey, I ran track, whatever sport I could get my hands on. And they were all with other people. They were team sports. So I functioned best in a team environment.
Yeah.
All right. And so that led me to, when I'm in organizations, I don't think vertical, I think horizontally. And so I'm always thinking about, what did I just do and how does that impact upstream and downstream? How do my colleagues feel about what's going on? Does this impact their job? So going back to finding my first job, I came in, I worked on a team. Unfortunately, they had to go through a layoff and I was the last one standing. So they laid everybody else off. I was the last one in, but the ones to stay. And I felt a little badly about that.
I love that analogy that you described about leveraging all of the people in your network, people that were connected to sports and family and activities. I think, when you're just graduating college and you're looking for your first opportunity, I think oftentimes graduates get so hung up on getting your resume out there, connecting with, the career center at the university that they're graduating. And they put so much emphasis on having that career center help them find a job that there's jobs that are right on the other side of people that are in your family, in your circle of, all of your connections. And so there's, for early, career job seekers, there's so many life lessons there that tap into your network, especially if it's people like your coach or family members. Yeah.
Raymond, you so well said. And I was thinking that people always like, how did you know to do that? And I think it still goes back to how I was raised. When you are with so many people all the time, I had my own mind. I also knew that by joining forces with others, I could move faster. I could have, it's a multiplier effect, right? And the other thing is I was okay with knowing that I could ask my family members for help. And one of the things that I continued to embrace and learn, and it's been so challenging because also as an executive, as a female executive growing, I'm like, I can do this, right? And really learning how to ask for help. And I don't think it's isolated to the young generation. I think all generations struggle with, we think we have to do it alone. And I truly believe you cannot do it alone. I don't care who you are. Maybe if you're programming or something like that, but if you're building a business, if you're working in an organization, because your mind alone, for me, it's all about cognitive diversity. Getting different thoughts and ideas is the power that happens. And then that's when you get that's when you get to it, right? It's about, because I don't know all the answers, nor do I think I do. But you got to ask for help. And it's okay.
That is, yeah, that resonates so much with me. I feel like at a young age, our parents teach us to be independent, be strong, and being vulnerable at a young age
Right.
is a real skill to being authentic. And I'm going to use that word authentic because it's something you write about a lot in your book is authenticity. And at a young age, when you're being vulnerable and you're asking for help, you're asking people in your network for help, like not feeling like at an early age you have to sort of begin to put the world and the weight of the world on your shoulders and then start climbing the mountain. And if we could teach our kids at an early age to learn how to be vulnerable and ask for help, and that's not a sign of weakness. Like I think in
Yes.
corporate,
Yes.
asking for help and being vulnerable as a leader is taught to us as a sign of weakness, and that builds over your career. And it's not until you get into it for several decades do you realize, as you become more wise and become more confident and become more authentic, do you realize that sense of identity and realize that being vulnerable and asking for help is actually something that's going to get you further in your career. And so the fact that you did that early on is so impressive.
Thank you. And I have to tell you though, you hit you when you were before you even used this, I wrote the word corporate down. And
Mhm.
then you started talking about it.
Yeah.
And I bring it up because I I feel like again, you and I write about this in the book that you go into corporate and you have to wear the armor, right? You have to show the world you know all the answers and stuff like that and as I grew and I I was gaining wisdom and experience, right? I felt like it was okay to start letting that down. But it happened because I went through so many changes in my life. And I do think corporate is a tough environment. And I think it stifles people because they're thinking I have to please my manager or I have to. And meanwhile, the manager's about to step on a landmine and no one's told the manager to
Mhm.
go down that way, to go down that path. And so by learning from people that I frankly thought were terrible leaders and managers, and also watching what was going on, I really learned how to understand the environment I was in. So
Mhm.
depending on if I was in front of the board, or if I was in front of the executive team, or if I was in front of my team,
Mhm.
and it wasn't that I had multiple personalities, but I did. I knew that I had to know my environment, play to where it is, because it didn't change who I was. But now I recognize that when I'm in front of investors, what I say, how I deliver has to look like this. But when I'm talking to my team, I'm like, guys, I've had a bad day. Okay, let me just say that. I'm having a bad day. This sucks. Don't think it's important. I need everybody just give me a 5-minute break. Okay. So I can say it there. And I will tell you, one of the things that has made me a great leader, and you can interview all the people that work for me, they still call me once a week or more. Like I've gotten like a rolling. And it's because they know they can come to me and I'm going to give them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it's going to be delivered in a way that feels like it's a hug.
Mhm.
All right. And so you doesn't always have to be positive, but it's important for people to hear like, how are you going to help them grow and give them feedback? So
Mhm.
I think corporate really just, does crazy stuff to people. It really does.
Jenny, I'm wondering, you mentioned earlier around the challenges and the struggles, and you said that in this corporate environment, there was a moment in your career where you started to feel like you could sort of release the armor. And I wonder if you're comfortable sharing. I think challenges can be very relatable to people in general, and was curious around like what would what would a challenge look like that would allow you to sort of say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm going through, and this is like allows me to be authentic and lower the armor to be real to your people.
Well, there are a couple things. early on in my 30s, I was fortunate to have an executive coach. My boss came to me and said, I've never seen a performer like you. Like, you just whatever, but I'm not sure how the team sees you. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like, this is probably 30, 31 years old, which is a long time ago. Okay. And I remember getting a 360. And the only feedback, which was, it crushed me, that came back was, we don't trust working with her. She moves really fast. She doesn't always articulate all her thoughts, but we don't trust her. I'm like, how can you not trust me? Like, all right. I was shocked, beyond shocked. And and I was so fortunate. That's why I always say to people, like, if you can get a career advisor, forget like a coach, someone, a mentor, get one, because sometimes people are just afraid to share some of the feedback because it's really hard.
Yeah.
So that was one piece. The other piece was my father died when I was 35 and died at the age of 59. And it crushed me again. Okay. He was my idol. He was my mentor. I'd call him, get out of board meeting, Dad, okay, whatever. He's like, we could do this. We could do this. So that was number two. The next piece was the divorce. I thought I was I'm a great mama. I'm a great partner. I'm smart. I saw progress in my careers. And why would anybody want to get divorced from me? And I didn't see it coming at all. And I think that was the final straw. And I thought to myself, wow, okay. And it took me some time. I mean, I had a huge support system around me. My mom was there every day. My brother, that wasn't about them. That was about me. And my assistant at the time was making sure I was staying connected, but it was challenging, Raymond. It was really challenging. And so it took me some time. And then I realized that it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how perfect you try to be. It doesn't matter. Things are going to happen. People grow apart. You can't control everything. You can't, so I learned a lot through that process. I learned a lot.
Jenny, first of all, I appreciate the vulnerability there. I feel like how you just described that you were wearing the armor, and those three challenges that you just shared, the one is around how you show up for your team and getting feedback, the second being the passing of your father, and then the third being your separation. You were living in an identity that you felt like, you sort of had this vision of who you are as a career woman working in the corporate world. And it was like, I could see the shield, and it was almost like your employees who were reporting to you definitely didn't trust you because they didn't know you.
Right.
They didn't know who you really were. They knew what they saw on the outside, but they didn't really know Ginny on the inside.
Right.
And it's interesting that you started with that, because that's really at the core who you are. Like, when you think about authenticity, that's at the core who you are as a person. And I also lost my mom early. She was 60. And losing a parent at a young age is a wake-up call that says life's too short.
Right. I mean, I can tell you right now that every day I talk to him, I say hello. He's in every, I wear, somebody asked me before, I wear a bracelet he gave to me when I was 16 that I never take off. This is his pendant. He gave this to my mother at a major birthday. She gave it to me on my major birthday. I can tell you, like, I surround him, and, my mother keeps him alive because she's been a widow for all these years as well. And she, wrong, right, or different, the sun rose and fell, and he was just an amazing, not only a father, but he was available to so many people. The friends that I had, my boyfriends, he'd help them with writing their grants, because he he just knew how to do all this stuff and to get into college or whatever that looked like. And just, so, all these changes, they do impact you. And I always say, like, one of the things I'm working on this year is every year we always we teach people to think about their one word. And my one word this year is embrace. I'm going to continue to embrace who I am, what I'm about, my full self. And because I know when I fully show up and I pause to be intentional, the stronger I am with myself as well as with what I can offer others as well. So it's like perfect timing, right? It's January 7th and everyone's kicking off the new year. And
Right.
so it's good.
I love that. I love that word embrace. It's a great word to sort of make your North Star
Yes.
and really strive for that. I feel like in our world today, there's a lot of embracing that we can do with one another. So Jenny, when was the moment in your career where you really felt like it was time to make a change? You described working in corporate. You kind of described a little bit of this sort of transition that you were going in, even in the corporate world, where you started to really get a sense of your identity and who you are as a professional. And that led to some transformation. And I wonder if there was a moment that was either a wake-up call or a time in your career where you felt like it's really time to make a pivot and make a change. And I wonder if you can describe that.
I've thought a lot about that question, and I can't say there was a moment. What I can say is I've always talked about going and starting my own business, and my kids remind me of this.
Mm.
And I couldn't because I was taking care of my kids. I needed to make sure that their transition was strong, that I was available. And I knew if I jump into this, like being, leaving corporate America, you don't have it's not like you get a paycheck every 2 weeks. It's not like you can count on everything. It's amazing. It's an amazing experience and it's a wonderful challenge, but it's not consistent like it is in corporate. It's very different. And so I knew my first priority were my kids at the time, and they still are. I mean, other than my husband, who I love and adore as well, but I needed to be there for them. And so I kept thinking about it and talking to a few entrepreneurs who had already left corporate. And then I had an opportunity to transition. So I had a year transition. After I ran HR, I then went into running a P&L. Then it was time. I had the opportunity. My kids were all where they needed to be. I was ready. And so I made a transition out over the year and then started actually Voce Consulting, Voce meaning voice in Italian. It was professional services consulting. Within a year or so, I was bored. I was doing well financially, but I didn't like going into companies and coming out. And in addition to that, I was doing executive coaching, which I love, and career advisory, but I couldn't scale myself. And now my co-founder and we wanted to create a scalable solution. That's how we got to MyNextory. So I sunsetted my Voce Consulting and started MyNextory with my co-founder, where we built the SaaS so that we could scale career advisory and career pathing so that anyone had access to it. So that got me jazzed up because we built an entire solution and technology. It's crazy. If not, I was going back. If this doesn't work out or didn't work out, I was going to go back into corporate, but it's working out. So I'm good.
I love that.
So
I love how you just described what I think every worker experiences when they think of an idea. It's the timing. It's the timing of when do I make the decision to take the leap of faith. And it's more than just a risk factor. I think that there's a reality of taking care of the home life that you just described. You have your kids, you have college, you have school. There's a lot of responsibility, and taking that leap of faith without the certainty of a paycheck, without the certainty of benefits, is very risky. It's very real, you and a co-founder started MyNextory.
Grace Migliaccio, another good Italian.
Nice. You kept it in the family,
We
so to
did.
speak.
We did. And we've known each other since, oh my God, it's been probably about 20 years, maybe a little bit longer than 20 years.
Nice. How did you come up with the name?
Well, we knew that was all about someone's journey and about owning their story. And so we actually had a creative director, Jared, he's amazing. And he put us through an entire exercise. We spent a lot of time and resources on our brand. You know, what did we want people to feel? What are the colors that attract people to who we are? Because the journey of your career, both professionally and personal, is a challenge. It's always a challenge because it really pushes you to think about who are you? What am I about? Where am I going? So MyNextory became the brand. And then when we went out, we realized that, I mean, there was a company out there doing disc or something, I don't even know. And then we're like, MyNextory. And we're like, oh my goodness. So it worked in our favor. And all of the experience that you have when you go through our platform, people walk away. We get this feedback all the time. I feel good. I feel like I'm more clear about what's important to me, what's not important to me. How does that apply to my personal life? Because our mantra is live, work, happy. We live at work, we work at home. And how do we create this happiness? Again, not only at work, because we know that your personal and professional lives blend every day. So we went off on this journey. We had an amazing creative director, still works with us, and he really pushed us. He pushed us, and we love it. I mean, we just love it. I don't know how to say it. I'm glad we love it, right? That's good.
Yeah.
So.
No, I love that. I made a note of the live, work, happy. I know it's a graphic that's on your LinkedIn profile, and it's an inspiring quote.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love that. So I love this idea around just being your most authentic self, but owning your story. And it connects so nicely with your career. You know, when you were working in the corporate world, you had a story. And I wonder how your story connects to the mission of the company.
It is so aligned. It's scary. Like when we have this conversation, I see all the connections. Even when you think about my book that I published in 2016 or 2017, it's about courage, authenticity, and transparency. It's called Unspoken. I always feel like I'm ahead of things and I don't even realize it sometimes. And so it's all about how do you embrace not being okay? How do you embrace change? How do you embrace, for me, the curiosity of learning? And so everything in MyNextory is literally my life, not the lessons, of course, but I am MyNextory as it relates to, like, I am the example of constantly. Now we've just built a methodology and an approach so that you don't fall into it sometimes, or in some cases, not everybody's wired like us, right? To like jump off the side of the mountain and not sure if your parachute's going to work, or ask some questions of very senior leaders, the CEOs and others, or even call them up because you might be afraid, and that's okay. But we give the individual the tools and the guidance to really dig in. Like, what makes me so special? We talk about your superpower. Like, what's your superpower? Like, why does that make you so special? And then when people love that lesson too, they're like, oh my God, I never thought about my superpower. I'm like, let's embrace it. And, you know, it's, one of the lessons is imposter syndrome, which ties right into, like, we all have imposter syndrome. Everyone's like, oh, everybody knows that these people are so confident. I'm like, no, they're not. They're not. You think I'm confident all the time? They're like, well, you present yourself. I'm like, sure I do. All right. But I also, you were talking about vulnerability. So we want to give them the tools, the guidance, so they can talk to their manager. They can talk to their, at home, wherever, whatever that relationship looks like, their children, whatever it looks like. And frankly, we started this too, because between the two of us, we have 9 young adult children. Okay. They're in their 20s, but I call them young adults. And every one of them needed help. Every one of them, after they went to college or they came back, they're like, how do I navigate this? What do I do next? To your earlier comments. And so we found ourselves doing that over and over again. And now we get all the friends, of course, and their parents. But we
I
do,
love that.
yeah. So
I love that. And I love how you just connected to your kids, because my daughter's 21 now. She's a senior in college. And I just recently shared with her that, I'm like living my authentic self. So very similar to you, sort of went through this kind of transformation of myself, removing the armor and really leaning into who I am as a person and being authentic. And I'm seeing my daughter doing that now. And I think she's seeing me. And what's really cool, Jenny, is I'm actually, as she's kind of navigating relationships and friendships and hearing her sort of describe how she sets boundaries and how she shows up in the world, I'm like learning and validating the things that I went through, seeing it play through my daughter. And it's so cool. I'm like, I wish I had that when I was 21 years old. I had to figure it out on my own, and it's hard.
yes. Well, that's amazing because you hear your voice in them.
So, Jenny, was there a moment after you and your co-founder started MyNextory in the beginning where there was some uncertainty? You described a little bit about, not having a steady paycheck, and there's probably ups and downs in those early years. Was there a moment where you felt like this isn't going to work, and how did you overcome that?
Well, let me just say this, that we are, just to give you a timeline. So we built it in 22. We launched in early 23. We've only been in the marketplace a year and a half. And we're growing at like 300% this year in 24 with users. We're close to our revenue goals. We are, like I said, we're running through quicksand every day. So we are on a roller coaster. Do I have any regrets? No, I'll tell you why. Yeah. Do I like the inconsistency of income? No, nobody does. However, what I've realized is I've gotten my second MBA that would have cost me at Harvard, like completely immersed myself in building out a technology solution. And as a female CEO in the tech space, right, it's very unusual. The percentages are very low. And so I've learned a lot about things that I would have never been exposed to. So worst case scenario, walk away with a second MBA, and we have made an impact on thousands of lives, or we just don't grow as fast as I want to grow because I don't have a lot of patience. I'm working on that. I really am, but I'm not good at it. So I have not had any regrets. I'm the person who always looks at, okay, that just didn't work well. Okay, let's not do that again. What did we just learn from it? And how do we make a change moving forward? But I'm not a regret person. Because I put everything in that I have. So when someone says, did you give it your all? They look at me and they're like, no, we know you have nothing left in the tank, which is one of the things I need to work on, is I can't empty my tank so much because I do need to refuel. My kids always say, and they're in their 20s. They're like, Mama, where do you get all this energy? I'm like, I don't know. I have a lot of energy, but I sleep well, Raymond, just so you know. I sleep very well. So I don't really have any regrets. I don't.
Yeah, I love that. Well, so you, throughout your entire life, you're wired with a growth mindset.
Yes.
You are someone who doesn't get complacent. You don't settle for what life has given you. You're very optimistic. You're a glass half full. And you're always looking and open to taking some calculated risk, because you're definitely the kind of person that likes getting information, taking a calculated risk, and you know that you're going to learn from it.
Right.
Like, you have grown to a place where you are learning as you go. And the fact that you're saying, I'm getting an MBA, is a great way to look at it. I think that the outcome, regardless of whether it works or doesn't work, the learning that you get from it and the experience that you get from it is so much more valuable than what happens on the other side. It's the growth that comes out of it that is the most meaningful, and I think the biggest life lesson.
Oh, that's so well said. That is perfect. It's perfect. It's just, yeah, I mean,
I love it.
yeah, I love it.
So Ginny, I am so looking forward to finishing Unspoken. There's another quote that I want to read here that just really spoke to me. Earlier, I mentioned authenticity equals opportunity. The other one that I absolutely love is, if you're truly living your most authentic life, the fear of taking risks will diminish over time.
Yeah.
And that just resonates with what we just been talking about.
Yes.
Is taking risks. And I love how you took a risk in writing the book. You put yourself out there. You're sharing very personal stories about your life, your marriages, your marriage, your work. And so the fact that, I think, again, I'm going to go back to this idea of you and I are kindred spirits,
Yes.
because a couple things that I learned on in our conversation today. We both work for Cutco. We
I
both
love it.
we both sold knives. I didn't know that
Can we
coming
get some
into our
PR around that? Can we like say to them, hey, by the way,
right,
they're great
exactly.
knives,
Some
okay?
product placement here.
Yes,
Yeah.
there we go.
And yeah, we've just had a very similar. I've learned a lot, and I've had so much fun on our
Thank you.
conversation.
Thank you. Same here.
Yeah, of course. So tell me, how does people find MyNextory? How do they get in touch with you?
So multiple ways. So first of all, I would definitely go visit our website and just take a look at that. But you can find me on LinkedIn at Ginny Palmieri. It's Ginny Palmieri. Or you can email me at ginny@mynextory.com.
Yep.
And then we also have an Instagram. So if you want to check out some of the stuff there. But I think the best way is my email, our website, or my LinkedIn profile. Connect with me. Because then we do a lot of posting on, also we're teaching as we go along for the individual, the businesses, on things that we're learning. Because remember, we're behind the scenes and we are gaining all this information about people's lives and their focus and, challenges and things that they're trying to achieve. And we don't share any individual data, but we look at trends and we're like, oh my goodness, you're not alone, right? Again, you're not alone. Everybody's going through this, and people are like, oh my God, thank you for sharing this. I'm like, you're welcome. So, but that's how you can get a hold of me. But I would love
that.
Yeah, definitely come check us out.
Yeah, and MyNextory is MyNextory. We'll share that in the notes, but if you want to see the website. Ginny, thank you so much. I really appreciate you carving time out. I know we've had so many conversations, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation, but I really appreciate you sharing your story and being vulnerable. And I know that people can relate to many of the things that you talked about today. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure. I mean, I feel the same way. And it was so excited to have this conversation. I don't know about recording. Okay. But certainly that's just how it is. But I really was excited because it's easy, right? It's a conversation among friends. So
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
And thanks everyone for listening. Until next time. Hello, Raymond again here. Thank you again to our sponsor, Career Minds, a global provider of outplacement and career development services. And if you'd like to connect with me about your own personal career journey, you can connect with me at LinkedIn, as well as find me on Instagram at raymondlee.co. And until next time, remember, if you're stuck or unsure of your career or future, and you think it's time for a change, ask yourself these 3 questions. Does my career or work make me feel alive? Am I doing the things that matter to me most? And am I creating value for myself and for others? Until next time.